I am Lorraine Fields, 30 years old, and I thought the Christmas family gathering would be a memorable day. I put all my heart into preparing, personally cut the flowers to decorate and paid for all the expenses so that the family could have a more cozy meal and be more connected. But it was not as I thought. She pointed at my daughter and said, "A family without respect will collapse." Everyone at the party turned to look at my son and me. Without hesitation, I took my son's hand and left without saying a word. A week later, my father texted, "If you go out, remember to pay the electricity and water bill." I replied, "Let someone with manners pay." What happened next changed everything, leading to a truth that shattered every bond between us. Before we go on, tell me, where are you watching this from and what time is it there? Maybe we're closer than you think. If you've ever felt kidnapped or unseen by your own family, hit that like button and share your story below. Let's show just how far stories like ours can reach and how strong we've all become. Growing up in a Lancaster suburb, I always carried the weight of being the eldest. As Lorraine Fields, I was 8 years older than my brother Jared Fields, and that meant I was the one who stepped in for everything. From the time he was 10, I helped him with math homework, explaining fractions while he fidgeted and complained. When he turned 16 and got his first car, I paid $500 for a new battery after he left the lights on overnight. Being the big sister involved fixing his mistakes, even when he dismissed my help with a shrug. Daily chores fell on me too. I made sure he had clean clothes for school, ironing his shirts while he played video games, and prepared simple meals like sandwiches for lunch because Mom and Dad were often too busy. He'd sneer, "Why do you always act like my mom?" making me feel like my efforts were worthless. Mom Doris Fields and Dad Howard Fields never acknowledged Jared's flaws. To them, he was the sensitive one who needed extra care. When I earned good grades in high school, Mom would barely notice, too occupied praising Jared's average sports performance. Dad, who worked long hours in logistics, would slap Jared's back saying, "You've got what it takes, son," while my report card sat unread. Their favoritism hurt, but I pushed through, believing it was my role to keep things stable. I took part-time jobs during college, saving money to assist with household expenses while Jared got new sneakers and gadgets without earning them. He'd mock my thriftiness, calling my second-hand clothes rags, even as I bought him brand-name shirts for birthdays. Grandma Clara Fields and Grandpa Norman Fields, who lived a short drive away, were my anchor. They'd invite me over for homemade cookies and card games, their cozy home a refuge from the tension. Grandma Clara would smile, saying, "Lorraine, you're the steady one in this bunch," when I confided my dreams of becoming an architect. Grandpa Norman, more reserved but supportive, would add, "You've got real grit, kid." Their encouragement contrasted sharply with my parents' bias, giving me the confidence to keep going despite the daily slights at home. After college, I landed a job as a project manager at a Lancaster architecture firm. The salary was decent enough to afford my own place and still help out, but family demands persisted. 4 years ago, when Jared entered college, I started covering his costs. His tuition, $15,000 annually, came from my savings. I co-signed his off-campus apartment lease, contributing $700 monthly. I even added him to my credit card for essentials, though he charged video games and fast food. Mom and Dad claimed financial strain, so I filled the gap, thinking it was temporary. Jared never expressed gratitude. Instead, he'd quip, "Easy for you," with that cushy office job, belittling my long hours. Jared's envy escalated as I succeeded. At 22, a college senior with a part-time gig at a coffee shop, he resented my stability. When I purchased a small condo last year, he scoffed, "Must be nice having money to burn." During family meals, he'd criticize my career, labeling my projects useless designs for rich folks, or mocking my overtime as pretending to be important. Mom would chuckle, saying Jared's just kidding around, while Dad agreed, never intervening. I'd clench my jaw, avoiding confrontation, but each jab eroded my patience. Grandma Clara spotted it. One evening, while we flipped through her family scrapbook, she grasped my arm and said, "Don't let their pettiness dull your shine, Lorraine." Grandpa Norman, fixing a lamp nearby, glanced up and remarked, "You're handling more than they ever did." Their backing sustained me, but Jared's resentment and my parents' partiality created a divide. I continued providing funds, effort tolerance, convinced that's what siblings do. Or at least that's what I convinced myself. Months before the reunion, I poured my heart into making it perfect. I wanted to honor Grandma Clara and Grandpa Norman Field's 60th wedding anniversary with a day they'd never forget. I booked Heritage Barn in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a rustic spot with room for 50 guests. For $5,000, I secured the barn, complete with wooden beams and a cozy atmosphere. I spent hours selecting a menu: roast beef, mashed potatoes, and apple pie, their favorites. I hired a local photographer, paying $800 to capture every moment. My fiancé Ryan helped me negotiate with vendors while my best friend Monica designed invitations. Their support kept me grounded even when doubts crept in about pulling it off. Jared, at 22 and a college senior, didn't share my excitement. Over dinner one night, I shared my plans hoping he'd be proud. Instead, he smirked. "What's with the big show, Lorraine? Gotta flaunt your money." His words stung, but Mom jumped in. "Jared's just stressed from school." Dad nodded. "Let him be, Lorraine. He's got enough on his plate." Their defense of him has always left a bitter taste. I forced a smile, swallowing the hurt, determined to make the day special despite his attitude. Grandma Clara sensed my stress. During a visit to her house, she pulled me aside while we sorted linens for the event. "You're doing something beautiful, Lorraine," she said, her eyes warm. Grandpa Norman, reading his newspaper, looked up and gave a firm nod. Their encouragement fueled me, reminding me why I was doing this. I wanted to give them a day of joy, a rare moment where family meant something more than tension. The morning of the reunion, I arrived at Heritage Barn at 7. I checked the floral arrangements, white lilies and roses costing $400, and adjusted table settings for the buffet. The air buzzed with anticipation as my cousin Caleb Marsh arrived early to help string fairy lights. My coworker Kristen Cole dropped off a playlist she'd curated full of classic jazz to set the mood. Guests trickled in, neighbors, old friends, distant relatives, all chatting and laughing. Monica darted around ensuring the caterers were on track, while Ryan greeted everyone with his easy charm. For a moment, I felt proud, like this could be the day I'd dreamed of. Then Jared showed up an hour late. His hoodie was wrinkled, his eyes half closed, like he'd just rolled out of bed. "Nice flowers," he muttered, eyeing the lilies. "What, you trying to be some event planner now?" I ignored him, focusing on the guests, but he wasn't done. At the buffet, he poked at the beef and scoffed. "This looks like it came from a fast food joint." A few heads turned and the chatter dipped. My stomach nodded, but I kept moving, checking the dessert table to avoid a scene. Monica pulled Jared aside, her voice low but firm. "Ease up, okay? Lorraine worked hard for this." He shrugged, grabbing a soda. Caleb, always the peacemaker, tried lightening the mood, joking about the music. "Come on, Jared, dance with us later," he said, grinning. Jared just rolled his eyes. I caught his glance, cold and sharp, and a chill ran through me. His comments weren't just teasing, they felt deliberate, like he wanted to ruin this. I pushed the thought away, telling myself I was overreacting. After all, this was for Grandma and Grandpa, not him. By noon, the barn was full, laughter echoing as guests shared stories. Kristen handed me a coffee, whispering, "You've outdone yourself, Lorraine." I smiled, but Jared's presence lingered like a shadow. His late arrival and snide remarks had already soured the mood for me. I glanced at Grandma Clara, who was chatting with a neighbor, her face glowing. I wanted to protect that joy, but something told me Jared wasn't here to celebrate. His attitude was a warning, one I couldn't shake as the day wore on. As the afternoon began, the atmosphere started to shift. The reunion at Heritage Barn had been smooth so far, with guests mingling and sharing memories. I moved through the crowd, refilling drinks and ensuring everyone was comfortable. Jared hovered near the buffet, his posture slouched, picking at his plate. He caught my eye and smirked, but I turned away, focusing on a conversation with Sheila Dunn, a family friend who'd known us since childhood. She asked about my work and I explained a recent project, feeling a brief sense of normalcy. Jared's voice cut in from across the room. "Lorraine's telling her success stories again," he said, loud enough for several guests to hear. A few chuckled politely, but the comment hung in the air. I felt my cheeks heat, but I smiled and continued talking. Sheila frowned, glancing at Jared, but said nothing. Mom Doris Fields overheard and waved it off. "Jared's just joking," she said, her tone light. Dad Howard Fields nodded from his seat, not bothering to intervene. Their casual dismissal made my stomach twist, but I held back, not wanting to escalate things in front of everyone. As the group gathered for toast, Jared spoke up again. "To Lorraine, the one who always has it all figured out," he said, raising his glass with a sarcastic edge. The room quieted slightly, some guests exchanging glances. Caleb, my cousin, tried to redirect, proposing a toast to Grandma Clara and Grandpa Norman, but the tension lingered. Monica, my best friend, pulled me aside. "He's being a jerk," she whispered. "You okay?" I nodded, but inside the comments built like a storm. Kristen, my coworker, noticed too, her expression concerned. Grandma Clara watched from her seat, her eyes narrow. She leaned toward Grandpa Norman, whispering something, but he shook his head. Sheila Dunn, standing nearby, commented quietly to me, "Jared's pushing it today." I agreed, but kept my voice low. The afternoon dragged with Jared's subtle jabs, continuing questioning my choices, mocking my job. Mom and Dad laughed along, their approval fueling him. I fought to stay composed, but the pressure mounted, the air thick with unspoken conflict. The celebration felt fragile, ready to crack. Suddenly Jared stood up, his voice cutting through the chatter. The reunion at Heritage Barn had reached its peak, with guests seated for the anniversary toast. Jared, at 22, cleared his throat loudly. "Let's be honest about Lorraine," he said, his tone dripping with scorn. "She's always showing off her career, acting like she's too good for this family. When's the last time you really cared about us?" His accusation echoed, accusing me of neglecting them for my job. I froze, my heart pounding. Before I could respond, "Mom," Doris Fields added. Jared has a point, her voice sharp. "You're always focused on yourself." Dad Howard Fields leaned in, his eyes cold. "A family without respect will fall apart," he said. The room fell silent. Guests stared, the joy evaporating. My chest tightened, a wave of humiliation washing over me. I had organized this day, paid for every detail, yet my own family was dismantling me in front of everyone. Jared continued pacing. "You think you're a hero, but you've abandoned us." He spat. His words twisted reality, portraying me as distant when I'd been the one holding them up. I wanted to counter, to list my sacrifices, but my throat closed. Monica clenched her fists, ready to speak, but I signaled her to stay silent. The air grew heavy, the guests uncomfortable. Caleb shifted, whispering to Kristen, their faces shocked. Then Grandma Clara stood up, her voice steady but firm. At 81, she commanded the room. "Enough," she said, eyes scanning the guests. "It's time for the truth." Doris and Howard, my son, took $30,000 from me and Harold's savings for Jared's tuition and expenses, while lying to Lorraine about our struggles, forcing her to pay. Gasps filled the barn. My mind reeled, years of covering Jared's costs, believing they needed help when they'd used Grandma and Grandpa's money. Mom stammered, "It wasn't like that, Clara. Jared needed it more, he's sensitive." Dad defended, "We had no choice. Lorraine's fine. Jared's still figuring things out." Their excuses rang empty. The guests whispered, some shaking heads. Ryan's hand found mine, his grip firm. Monica nodded fiercely, her eyes supportive. Caleb and Kristen exchanged looks, the unfairness palpable. Sheila Dunn, the family friend, crossed her arms, her expression hard. Grandma Clara didn't waver. "You lied to Lorraine, made her believe we were broke while spending our money on Jared's luxuries, trips, gadgets," she said, staring at Mom and Dad. Her words freed me from guilt. I turned to them. "Let the polite one pay it," I said, my voice clear, refusing further support. Jared's face reddened, but I held firm. Mom tried to protest, but I cut her off. The revelation shattered the facade, leaving me empowered to protect my value. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, ready to take back my life. The sting of yesterday's revelation lingered, but Grandma Clara's words had ignited my resolve. I was done funding their lies. I picked up my phone and called the property management company for Jared's apartment. I'd been paying $700 monthly as guarantor. "Remove me from the lease," I said, my voice firm. The representative confirmed the 30-day notice requirement. Next, I contacted my bank to cancel the credit card linked to Jared. No more unauthorized charges on my account. By midday, Jared's call came. "You're really doing this," he yelled, accusing me of ruining his life. "You're selfish. Lorraine always thinking you're above us." His anger mirrored his reunion rant. But I stayed calm. "It's over, Jared," I replied, refusing to argue. "Handle your own bills." He cursed, calling me ungrateful, but I ended the call, my hands steady. For years, his demands had drained me. Now, I reclaimed control. An hour later, Mom rang. "How dare you cut Jared off?" she demanded. "He's your brother. He needs help." Dad joined, his tone gruff. "You're destroying this family. You owe us for everything." Their pleas were predictable, defending Jared while ignoring their deceit. I breathed deeply, the memory of their betrayal fueling me. "No more," I said. "You used Grandma and Grandpa's savings for him and lied to me. I'm done paying." Mom gasped, pleading, but I hung up, a sense of relief washing over me. Ryan arrived that afternoon, offering quiet support. We sat in the living room as I detailed the calls. "You're strong for this," he said, his hand on mine. Monica came over later, her energy bolstering me. "This is your power move," she said, hugging me. She advised changing my locks and monitoring my credit, practical steps that strengthened my stance. Their backing reminded me I wasn't alone, solidifying my commitment to boundaries. As the day progressed, I felt empowered. Every payment I'd made, tuition, rent, cards, had been a chain. Breaking them freed me from their manipulation. I reflected on the years I prioritized their needs over mine, believing it defined family. That belief had cost me peace. Now I chose self-respect. The calls stopped by evening, but I knew it wasn't the end. Still, I stood firm, ready for whatever came. 6 months later, my life felt lighter than ever before. Ryan and I had built a stable routine in our Lancaster home, enjoying simple pleasures like weekend hikes and game nights. I'd severed all ties with Jared, Mom, and Dad, ignoring their attempts to reconnect. The quiet was liberating. No more demands, no more manipulation. I focused on what mattered, creating a future without their shadow. Ryan's unwavering support made it possible, his presence a constant reminder of true partnership. Jared, now 23, had graduated but struggled. A distant acquaintance mentioned he was working full-time at a local diner, flipping burgers and serving tables. He hadn't changed, still ranting about how I'd sabotaged him, refusing to take responsibility. His job barely covered basics, a direct result of losing my financial safety net. Mom and Dad faced worse. They'd lost their home to foreclosure after missing payments, forced to downsize to a small apartment. Their complaints fell on deaf ears. I'd blocked them completely. Their lives unraveled without my backing, a harsh but real consequence of their deceit. They didn't matter to me anymore. Instead, I cherished memories of Grandma Clara and Grandpa Norman Fields, their love a beacon in the chaos. I visited Grandma, often sharing stories and laughs, grateful for her courage. Her actions had shown me what real family meant, support without strings. Grandpa Norman, though gone, lived on in her tales, reinforcing the values they'd instilled in me. Reflecting on it all, the lesson was clear: boundaries are essential for self-respect. I'd let Jared, Mom, and Dad exploit my generosity, tying my value to their needs. No more. Cutting them off wasn't revenge, it was protection. In a world where family can drain you, saying no preserves your worth. I learned to prioritize my peace, refusing to let toxic ties define me. That shift brought freedom I never knew. The reunion at Heritage Barn marked the end of that era. It exposed their hypocrisy, forcing me to choose myself. Now I thrive, unburdened by their expectations. To viewers, remember, you don't owe endless sacrifice. If family disrespects you, set limits. It's strength, not weakness. Share your experiences with family drama or boundaries in the comments. Your story might inspire someone. Thanks for watching. Let's discuss below.